Hey, Shalom, Yasharala, peace be into the nation of Israel, whom are modern day so called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, the Speckled Israelites being the Israelite foreigners, scattered across the four corners of the earth, including within America, Babylon the Great, the main place of our captivity. And we are the Most High, Yahweh's chosen people of the nation of Israel. So without further ado, as always, in the Lashon Kadash, we're going to face the east. All right, the Lashon Kadash being the holy tongue is in the Paleo Hebrew, meaning ancient Hebrew, and give all praises, glory, and honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Baruch Kodash, meaning our praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, who is our strength and our Redeemer, and our light and our salvation. In the same tongue, Mada Mashana Kabodium, Lahasakonium, Shal Galarabaka, meaning double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, great millstone for teaching ruling well, and Shalom, honors and salutations to Bayah Shadawadah, the house of David, along with the rest of the one-third elected men, women, and children of Israel, scattered across the four corners of the earth, including within America, Babylon the Great, the main place for our captivity. So, fellow servant Malak Rayab, back at it again with another edition of Global Events End Time Prophecy on the date of March 18, 2026. And I'm going to get straight into it, through a few articles and a few videos centered around the whole, global landscape of geoeconomical, geopolitical, and military woes, all right, provoked by the whore America, Babylon the Great, and, the regime that she answers to being the tiny tops out there in the Holy Land, all right, the Zionist bankers, okay, on behalf of the Israeli Mossad, the Israeli Mossad on behalf of the Zionist bankers, rather, okay, how these devils are, stirring a mischief in the earth, to bring forth this new totalitarian, dystopian technocracy, right, to chip everyone, and to replace this petrodollar with the chips. Everything that's going on right now is a synchronized demolition of this current American monetary system to transition it over to this new totalitarian dystopian technocracy, all right, which is, everything that's happening right now, especially geoeconomically, centered around the Strait of Hormuz, is all within the path to the MOTB in Revelation 13 to 16 to 17, and that's that chip. So we're going to start off with this first article. It's on Newsbreak. Let me see here. And that number Satan, man. What the fuck? Let me jump back up. So like, yeah, scroll up to the top. It says Trump demands NATO allies police the Strait of Hormuz. So far, they're refusing. Right? Because there's been there's been a certain NATO and EU allies and affiliates, such as Australia, to the EU, that have rejected Trump's advances of them sending their ships to the Strait of Hormuz to police the Strait of Hormuz, to further, entice Iran to capitulate to Trump's advances to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is asinine for the fact that he's the reason why the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, okay, by carrying out the orders of the Israelis to bomb Iran, like that piece of shit John McCain has said some years ago, who's now in the spiritual world, who kicked the bucket several years ago, that Edomite John McCain was known for saying bomb Iran. So the Israelis finally got their wish, but it's further affecting them because their military equipment is being destroyed, okay, because the military equipment that they receive, mainly comes from America. All right, over $1 billion worth of, well over $1 billion worth of military equipment, including military radars and surveillance technology, has been obliterated by Iran. Okay, so not only are they being exposed as weaklings militarily, but as far as also within their image, that is being punctured by way of them looking to save face through this facade that America is this righteous empire to uphold. Okay, which the efforts of this current presidential administration further confirms that that's far from the case, including Trump and Pete Heck said line about Iran supposedly bombing their own school, okay, which I believe was elementary school, resulted in 168 dead Iranian girls, which came from a Tomahawk missile that's only produced by America. Okay, so these devils are just being exposed in every within every facet. But it says with the Iran war entering the third week, the Israelis said it has war plans for another 3 weeks, while President Trump demanded other countries help the U.S. secure the Strait of Hormuz. So not only did Germany reject their advances, a key NATO ally, the UK, Mother America, Mother Britain of America, reject their advances to send ships to the Strait of Hormuz. There's been other NATO and EU allies, several of them. Okay, because Babylon the Great is fallen, it's become the habitation of devils. Okay, so how's the hammer of the earth, Babylon the Great, been cut asunder through the vile, profane, covetous desires of the nation that runs this empire, and that's these Edomites, the self-proclaimed Caucasians and white people, the disease of the earth. It says, and a second front of war is heating up with new Israeli ground operations in neighboring Lebanon. And then speaking of Lebanon, the Israelis, through the IDF, have been bombing the shit out of Lebanon. So they've been trading fire. Out of the further justification that Iran and their militants are supposedly developing, thermonuclear weapons, okay, to harm the world. When it was the Israelis, it was bombing the shit out of them Ishmaelites over there in Palestine. All right, it have been for some years now, especially going back to October 7th. So it says here are more updates on the situation in the Middle East, and there was a link. All right, I believe the link was in the app. But this is in the next article. It's on the Hill. All right, as soon as it loads up. It says Trump faces economic squeeze as Iran conflict escalates. This came out a few days ago on the 8th. It says Trump is facing economic squeeze as Iran war dries up oil prices and the U.S. job market sputters. Because there's a lot of because petroleum, okay, is majorly transported through the Strait of Hormuz, which produces a lot of petroleum items such as particular fuels such as processed crude oil, okay, and gasoline and kerosene and jet fuel. Okay, so now that the Strait of Hormuz accounting for a fifth of the world's global oil supply of 20 to 21 million barrels of oil transporting to the area a day being shut off, and oil refineries being attacked, okay, and oil cargo ships being attacked, near key waters around the Persian Gulf, that has limited alternative routes of oil, further driving up the price and demand, or in this case, supply and demand, or the price of supply and demand, okay, of oil. Okay, and this is why oil is increasing. The longer that Strait of Hormuz remains shut, the longer or the higher the price per barrel of oil, okay, is expected to increase. Okay, so right now down here, the gas is up to $3.89. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was $2.48, and it's only going to keep increasing, man. All right. So it says Friday brought a double dose of bad economic news for Trump, an unexpected loss of jobs in February, and another surge in oil prices driven by growing conflict in the Middle East. As Colin has reported that there was there's about 90,000 job cuts. Okay, shortly before the preemptive strikes from the U.S. Israeli regime on Iran. So it's not a coincidence that the economy is in a worse state now. Okay, because this is all, once again, this is all synchronized demolition, a part of Esau's Hegelian dialectic, order out of chaos. All right, to bring forth this new satanic new world order agenda. All right, because a lot of industrial products and other petroleum-based products pass through the Strait of Hormuz as well, including cosmetic items, plastics, which plastics are essential and within the U.S. economy, but they're at a standstill because of this war in Iran. So says an unexpected loss of jobs in February and another surge in oil prices driven by growing conflict in the Middle East, in the so-called Middle East. All right, let me see here. Iran has effectively closed off the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow maritime passageway that ushers roughly 20% of global oil supply from the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean and beyond. All right. I'm going to jump down a bit. Slovakia. Says West Texas intermediate crude oil was more than $91 a barrel as of 4 p.m. Eastern Friday. Okay, the week, which was the week of March 8th, rising $10 on the day. Brent crude, the international benchmark, rose $7 to $92 at the same time. The average national price of a gallon of regular unleaded gasoline rose to $3.32 as of Friday, up from $3.25 on Thursday. or $3, Slovakia. Gasoline rose from $3.03 as of Friday, up from Slovakia, I said it right the first time. $3.32 as of Friday, up from $3.25 on Thursday, and $2.98 1 week ago, according to AAA. All right, let's see. With the conflict now in motion, the economy and labor market faces a new geopolitics taxed by higher financing costs, crude oil, jet fuel, gasoline, and mortgage rates. And I just spoke about that, minus the mortgage rates. All right, it says explain Mark Hamrick, senior economic analyst at Bankrate. Mortgage rates can further increase in the economy in general because diesel is increasing. I'm gonna play a video further going into that momentarily. That's pretty much the point there. Here's the point. Kevin Hassett, chairman of the White House National Economic Council, called the February jobs report an outlier, citing the strength of the January gain of 126,000 jobs and stronger than unexpected growth in productivity data for the end of 2025. But what does that mean now? There's been about 90,000, at least 90,000 job cuts, as of February. It's only going to increase because, especially with the contribution of AI taking over a lot of these jobs. All right, including these retail jobs and so forth. So I'm going to play this video, quick video. I'm not going to play the whole thing, maybe a couple of minutes of it. This Moabite professor has been going viral as of a few weeks now, centering around this whole Strait of Hormuz fiasco. So I actually did a lesson on this topic yesterday briefly, but it's entitled "Iran Sells Oil in Yuan, the Petrodollar's Worst Nightmare Begins." Professor Yang Yu Queen, I believe that's how I say that, but nonetheless, so it came out that Iran is proposing to only open up the Strait of Hormuz via oil pricing through China's petro-yuan, which would be completely vital and critical to the already plummeting petrodollar of the U.S. I mean, that's the only stability the U.S. has to wage geoeconomical warfare on their enemies for not capitulating to their advances, including waging this manner of warfare on Iran. And it's backfired geoeconomically, geopolitically, okay? Especially politically, for the fact that midterms coming up, I believe, in November. So Trump's looking stupid right about now, okay? So play a few minutes of this, a few moments of this anyway. Fair use.
14 days into this war, Iran fired its most dangerous shot yet. Not a missile, not a drone, not a ballistic weapon of any kind. A single sentence delivered by a senior Iranian official to CNN on Saturday morning. Iran will allow oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, but only if the cargo is paid for in Chinese yuan, not dollars. Yuan, 4 words that carry more weight than anything that has happened on a battlefield in the past 2
Hey, Shalom. I've seen a comment right now. The beloved brother Atazawam. Hey, Shalom. Yahweh Shemi Shabrakatah. And Shalom to Akim and few Aqua tuning in, including brother Hav Shalom out there in Norway in the Aquath. Okay. On the comment board, Shamar, I thought of you. What the wife for tuning in. So the brother Atazawam said the Israelis took out a major oil depot in Iran today that supplies 40% of oil of Iran. Not sure if you touched on this earlier, and I didn't. This is my first time hearing about that. And the water for that update, So, and on top of that, speaking of the Israelis, they've been attacking oil depots and oil refineries. Okay, I believe this past weekend there was the Israelis were attacking nuclear facilities and oil facilities or oil refineries of Iran. Okay, so that's only going to further negatively affect the economy, more so for America. Let's get back to this video.
Weeks, because what Iran just proposed is not a military move. It is a direct attack on the system that has kept America at the center of the global economy for 50 years. Today, we are going to break down exactly what that sentence means.
Now, this shit looks AI, but this guy actually exists. I'm not sure why this is an AI version, but the information that's coming out is not libelous or baseless. It's actually legitimate and substantiated. But there was an article brought out yesterday touching on this information. So Iran is actually legitimately proposing this geoeconomical idea to only open up the Strait of Hormuz through the via oil pricing through the petro yuan of China, because China relies heavily a lot on Iranian cheap Iranian oil. Okay, and a lot of these other nations, including certain NATO and EU nations. Okay, but I digress.
Why it matters more than any explosion you have seen on television, and what happens to the world if this idea gains traction. When most people hear the word petrodollar, their eyes glaze over. It sounds like an economics lecture. It sounds theoretical. It sounds like something that happens in boardrooms, not battlefields. But here's the thing. The petrodollar system is the reason America can afford to project military power around the entire planet simultaneously. It is the reason America can run deficits that would bankrupt any other country. It is the reason that despite spending trillions on wars, on debt, on everything, the dollar remains the currency every country on earth needs to hold. Remove that system, or even seriously damage it, and the financial foundation underneath American global power begins to crack. And Iran just threw a stone directly at that foundation. To understand why this matters, you need to go back to 1971. Before that year, the dollar was tied to gold. Every dollar in circulation was backed by physical gold sitting in American vaults. Countries trusted the dollar because they could, in theory, exchange it for gold. Then Richard Nixon ended that arrangement, the gold backing disappeared, and suddenly the dollar faced a question it had never faced before. Why should anyone trust it? The answer came from the Middle East. In 1974, the United States struck a deal with Saudi Arabia. The arrangement was simple. Saudi Arabia would price all of its oil sales in US dollars. In return, America would provide military protection for the kingdom. OPEC followed. Country by country, the global oil trade shifted to dollars. And what that created was something extraordinary. Suddenly, every country on earth that needed oil, which was every country on earth, needed to hold US dollars to buy it. Japan needed dollars, China needed dollars, India, Germany, Brazil, every industrial economy on the planet needed dollars. That created constant, permanent, structural demand for the American currency. And that demand is what allowed America to borrow endlessly, spend endlessly, and maintain a military presence across the globe that no other country could afford to replicate. The petrodollar is not just an economic arrangement. It is the financial spine of American global power. And it has survived for 52 years because every attempt to challenge it has been crushed.
Up until now, okay? Once again, pursuing Jeremiah the 50th chapter, the house of hammer ceased. Okay, by way of the vile, profane, covetous nature of the damn devils, being niggards, stingy individuals, thirsty for global dominion, at the expense of many lives, including them 168 dead Iranian schoolgirls, you devils are being exposed, man. Because this is not 1939 and 1945 anymore. Okay, during the attack on Pearl Harbor, okay, against them Ammonites in Japan, okay, you had the world on standby. You had the world shook, okay, over your atomic weaponry or weapons of mass destruction. But now these other nations have thermonuclear capabilities, man. This is why you want to limit the competition and limit the resistance of your satanic NWO, especially around the so-called Levant, around the so-called Mesopotamian area and the so-called Middle East, which is Western Asia, the Valley of Yahweh Shaphat, all right? A compound word meaning Yahweh judgment, the judgment of the Heavenly Father Yahweh. And this is where this last world's war is getting ready to take place, all right? And being that these wars are bankers' wars, it's not a coincidence that the petrodollar is involved and potentially set to be replaced by the petro yuan, which would be vital, okay, on the global international trade scale, man. All right. So I'm going to start off with this first precept, and you know what? Let me get in the blue letter. There's a word I want to look up. This is we get Zephaniah 1 and 11. All right, Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 11. And it reads, "How ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off, right? Because Maktesh was a merchant city known to bear silver, all right? Trading, or otherwise known as trading silver. I believe the Hebrew word for Maktesh is maktash, okay, meaning a mortar, or which is symbolic of grinding, laboring, all right? Your laboring is going to be at a standstill, okay, because of what's going on geoeconomically, further centered around this whole, U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. So this is grab a quick precept on that. Ecclesiastes. Let me go ahead and get it here. All right, Ecclesiastes. Salakia. All right, this is the book of Ecclesiastes. Salakia. Let's look it up here. All right, Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And start at verse 3. It says, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and strong men, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. All right, so the keepers of the house, all right, these Zionist bankers specifically that have heaped down, our that have reaped our treasures for their own, roughly paraphrasing, as to what it says in St. James the 5th chapter. All right, how they matter of fact, let me get that real quick. All right, just to avoid butchering it. James 5, start at verse 3. It says, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rest of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as with fire. You have heaped treasure together for the last days, and we're living in the last days, man. Okay, but the wealthy nation, pursuing of Jeremiah 49, verses 31 and 32, okay, is going to be cornered, it's going to be surrounded, even by her allies. Okay, going into Revelation 17 and 16, how the beast will burn the whore, regarding the NATO and the EU rising up against the machine. All right, St. James 5 and 4, behold, the hired laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Adawan, Lord of Sabaoth, the Lord of armies, which is Yahushai. Okay, so you reap down our fields, by yourself, kept back by fraud, man. Okay, you're accumulating all this wealth from slave labor, a huge profitable business in America, through the cotton fields, sugar fields, tobacco fields, that the so-called Negroes and indigenous, the respective kingdoms of the southern and northern kingdoms of Israel, okay, were forced to labor within for you. Okay, so now you wanna essentially go back to those days of chattel slavery, but make it a digital system. Okay, going into that digital all mentioned in the Torah and the Torah, the modern day all, okay, which is going to be a digital all. Okay, something that's punctured inside of the flesh. Okay, which that object or item is going to, or device is going to be punctured inside the flesh, is that chip. So it's also what this is leading into, man. This is why the keepers of the house are trembling, because even though they're orchestrating this collapse, okay, globally, within this global economy, more so in America, they know the conclusion of this matter is going to result in Yahushua returning and enslaving them, as it says in Psalm 149 and verses 6 to 8. So the grinders are ceasing, okay, as a result of the keepers of the house trembling, because they're the designers, bankers, because they're the ones behind this synchronized demolition of this American economy. Okay, further affecting the farmers, okay, the everyday laborers, and the so-called middle class and lower classes and so forth. And this is why people looking out of these windows will be darkened. There's going to be a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of foreclosures on businesses, and so forth. Okay, by way of what's coming. So this is Ecclesiastes 12 and 4, and it says, and the door shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. It represents folly through these entertainment. That's why Slim Thug and Lupe Fiasco and Rihanna and so some other nigga sellout artists were complaining a few years ago of people not coming to their concerts because of the C to the B to the 1-9 at that time. And Esau shutting everything down. See? All right, so that's another sign of the dollars of music being brought low. Because people are not really thinking about entertainment and bread and circus events now. Okay? Because of how dire the straits are for everyone now. Okay, regarding hyperinflation as a further result of this U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, centered around the Strait of Hormuz, a very critical choke point of the world's most critical, pathway of energy. Okay, including once again crude oil, produced by petro, by the petrol, producing refined crude oil and gasoline, kerosene, jet fuel. Okay, liquefied natural gas. Okay, fertilizer. About 35% of fertilizer passed through the Strait of Hormuz, further affecting industrial. The industrial aspect of the economy, the farmer industry, including the farmer industry. Okay, so everything is centered around this war. This was going to further cause a lot of job cuts as well, because people are not going to be able to sustain hiring as they used to, by way of the times which you're living in. So this is Isaiah 19:15. It says, "Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which a head or tail branch or rush may do." In modern day Egypt is America. Egypt meaning bondage. Okay, Matazarium in the Hebrew, Egyptos in the Greek, meaning bondage. That's why on the back of the dollar bill, Esau proclaims this, the Egyptian symbolism, which is further symbolic of slavery or captivity, for the mocking Jake. So there's not going to be any work in modern day Egypt, as it says in Revelation 11:8, that their dead bodies will lie in the streets of Egypt. Meaning people are spiritually asleep, they're docile, they're oblivious to what is going on in the world. So not only they're spiritually dead, but that spiritual death is going to manifest into physical death for those who are not covered by the blood of the Lamb when the Lord unleashes these plagues upon the world, man. Pursuing the second Ezra 15:5 and so forth. All right, especially famine. Okay, especially famine. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and let me go back to Zephaniah 1:11. Read that again. "How ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all that bear silver cut off." All right, who are the main merchant people? These Zionist bankers and all those who trade with her. Okay, that have been drunk off the wine of fornication with this whore. Okay, getting her proverbial bed in terms of doing business with her, getting involved with her on a global scale. Okay, especially geoeconomically to support their own sovereign nations economically, but that's backfired on them. Look at Iran. Iran has essentially capitulated, for the most part, to Esau's advances towards geopolitical advances towards him in terms of suppressing their development of thermonuclear missiles. Okay, through that JCPOA thermonuclear Iran deal that Trump rescinded from back in 2018, further opening the door for war with Iran. So he was the one that perpetuated this war, but he's gaslighting these the vast majority, mainly within America, these reprobate Babylonians, to believe that Iran is a boogeyman. Okay, just like they made Russia the boogeyman within this Ukraine proxy war. Mm-hmm. So now Iran has returned the favor, taking a page out of the book of Esau, using proxy wars, using a method of proxy wars against him, man, seeking, as it was reported that Iran has been potentially getting aid from Russian satellites, targeting and identifying, these particular the location of these U.S. military bases and missile deflect systems and destroying them with great precision. Okay, so you merchants are being cut down, man, including all those of you nations who have been looking at merchandise with this whore. Okay, through international trade. So I'm going to go ahead and get Revelation 18. before I play the next video. It's Revelation 18. And start from the top. Read a couple of verses from the top. All right, Revelation 18:1 says, and after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was light with his glory. And it was for, just Yahushai. Okay. Verse 2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Okay, so Babylon the great is America. Babylon the great meaning the great land of confusion. Okay, it's fallen before our very eyes. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump down to verse 5. I'm going to go ahead and jump down from there. So this is Revelation 18:5. And it reads, for her sins have reached into heaven, and Yahweh had remembered her iniquities. This place is wicked, man. Okay, it says in Nahum 3, the 3rd chapter, Nahum 3:1. This place is full of lies and robbery. Okay, and down around the 4th verse, it says how this place is the mother of harlots and mistress of witchcrafts, roughly paraphrasing. Okay, following the J.E.W.-ish Kabbalah. Okay, taking a page out of that folly book. Okay, all right, of sexual decadence and fornication, sexual illicit activities such as these damn tiny tops call themselves circumcising children with their mouths, which is fellatio, which is sodomy. Okay, claiming that consent or sexual advances towards a 3-year-old is permittable or permissible in so many words, right? And so forth. So the J.E.W.-ish Kabbalah is full of mysticism. It's all about known as J.E.W.-ish mysticism, which is witchcraft, divination. And this is why they run Hollywood, a coven of witches and warlocks. Because Hollywood derives back to Hollowswood, okay, which was used by the ancient Druidic priests, to indulge in witchcraft. So America, Babylon the Great, is the mother of harlots and mistress of witchcrafts, man. Okay, full of carnality and witchcraft. This is why the Lord is going to reward you double for what you've done, the nation of Israel, and the main place of our captivity. Okay, it was this sinful kingdom. Okay, by unleashing hell upon you through the plagues of Yahweh Hashem Shai, man. So it's going to be overkill for you devils, right? This is Revelation 18:7, and read all the way down to 19. Says, how much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her, for she said in her heart, I said a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. It lines up with Isaiah 47. All right, Isaiah 47:9, I believe. So you're gonna receive the plagues of Yahweh Hashem Shai in totality. Okay, including widowhood, poverty. Okay, while you Edomites, including you Edomite Karens, are going viral, complaining about no longer really being able to make ends meet. Why? Because the curses are transitioning from Jacob over to you devils. And we're seeing at Jeremiah 30:7. That's like you, Deuteronomy 30:7. So Revelation 18:8 says, therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord Yahweh by Hashem Shai who judgeth her. All right. Verse 9. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. They're not going to lament or wail for her because they care for her, this whore. They're only going to lament and wail for her, bewail her because they're no longer going to be able to take advantage of her. Okay, regarding international trade. All right, Revelation 18:10. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Okay, by the capabilities of these hypersonic and ICBM missile warheads or missiles producing warheads traveling top Mach speeds in about 15 to 30 minutes. This is all it's going to take to destroy America, man. That's for the lines of a prophecy. So the Fatah missiles Iran has been dropping on the Holy Land on you damn tiny tops and U.S. bases, been travel top Mach speeds. So what more so ICBM missile warheads or ICBM missiles, okay, that release these warheads. Revelation 18:11. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Salakia. So there's going to be no more purchasing of your merchandise anymore. You got Trump bragging about how they don't need Elon's oil, and they got their own oil, and that's essentially true for the most part. For the meaning that America is a top oil producer only by way of fracking. I actually mentioned fractioning yesterday in the video. I'll have to go back and find a timestamp and correct that term. It's actually fracking, which is a method of extracting oil from underneath the ground. But they still rely on cheap, lighter oil from the likes of Mexico and Canada, but they've already burned the bridges with them, okay, for the most part, by slapping sanctions and tariffs on them, even though they got puppets over there as well, including that damn tiny top Claudia Sheinbaum. This devil is burning his bridges, man. It's only going to further hit us in the pockets, man, down here in America. That much more. Revelation 18:12 says, the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all thine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble. Says, and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. Because we're still slaves in this system. We're corporate slaves for the most part. I gotta go to my corporate plantation in a minute. Okay. So this is this place, man. And by the way, when you look up for the second time, I'm not gonna do it, but if you actually look up the word for merchandise in the Greek, it's gomos, going to freight. Okay, transportation or transporting via freight. Okay, through ships and so forth. Okay, traveling through these docking ports in America. That's why during the Biden administration, back in like 2020, 2021, they shut down a major docking port in California that had a lot of crippling effects economically. So this precept right here further reveals who America is. You got this damn reprobate Nasir Ayala, okay, who's gone with the wind now, but some years ago he was claiming that Babylon was Italy. I was actually in Italy, and there's no major docking ports over there, so that's a damn lie. This precept right here for that reveals who or what Babylon the Great is, and that's America. Okay, but we have the description of merchandising, okay, and how and the revelation of the method of merchandising. Okay. So this is Revelation 18, and I'm gonna skip to 14. And it reads, and the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. There's going to be a drought economically in this world. Verse 15, the merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. Okay, you're going to fear, the strength, their stability of their sovereignty being suppressed. Okay, and a further limited. Okay, regarding the fear of the top plague of the Lord, or it was just famine. It says here in verse 16, and saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. Says, for in 1 hour so great riches come to naught, and every shipmaster not accompanying ships and sailors, and as many trade by sea stood afar off. All right. Verse 18, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? It lines up with Revelation 13 and 4. Who can make war with who can make war? I mean, who can make war with her? Man, let me get that real quick. Revelation. This is why this damn war criminal, the Pete Hegseth, the Department of Homeland Security, Department of War chief, and Trump have been bragging, about America's might. That's all Esau has, man, the strength of his sword, his blessing. Revelation 13:4, and they worship the dragon, which gave power to the beast, and that dragon is, the fourth beast empire, Rome, and it's splitting. The mirroring image of Rome is America. It says, and they worship the beast, saying, "Who is likened to the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" Okay, who's able to make war with this dragon, right? This piercing serpent, the old ancient serpent called the devil and Shaitan. Esau, Edom, a subclan white man. This is the mentality of the devil. Okay, but Yahweh Shemashai is going to send Yahweh Shai to bring the devils down, man. Okay, this is Revelation 18 and 19. And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, "Alas, alas, the great city, wherein were made rich all that has ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For 1 hour is she made desolate." Okay, so this place, a wealthy nation, is no longer going to be known as wealthy. So I'm going to play a quick clip. The reason why is because you keep provoking it on. It came out. I'm not going to play it, but came out that the U.S.
I am the director of research at Harvard.
The U.S. Israeli regime had eliminated 2 more Iranian officials yesterday. This is reported by Fox. It says Iran Defense Forces posted on X, Ali Larijani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council and the regime's effective leader, has been eliminated. Throughout the years, Larijani was considered one of the most veteran and senior figures within the Iranian regime leadership. He was a close associate of the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. During the most recent wave of protests against the Iranian terror regime, quote unquote, Larijani personally oversaw the massacre that was carried out against Iranian protesters. This is how Esau further justified eliminating him. To keep that propaganda going that Iran is a boogeyman. All right. Commander of the Basit unit also eliminated. Yesterday, the IDF targeted and eliminated Gholam Razi Soleimani, who operated as commander of the Basij unit for the past 6 years. So you keep fucking with them, man. It says under Soleimani, the Basij unit led the main repression operations in Iran, employing severe violence, widespread arrests, and the use of force against civilian demonstrators. So now, under the guise of democracy, promoting global humanitarianism, you devils are basically saying, we're bombing Iran to make way for peace for you. It's a complete ludicrous way to gaslight, the masses, mainly in America, to entice them to believe in your madness. Okay. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and play a few minutes. I'm going to play a few moments of this video here. It's on CNN entitled "Marjorie Taylor Greene Calls on Vance Gabbard to Speak Against War."
About tonight with all the developments in Iran. I think first, though, on the 13 service members that have now been killed.
There's so many things that are so concerning about this war, and Americans have not been given enough answers. Here we are. Here's Americans at home right now. We've got families getting ready to go on spring break, and gas prices are skyrocketing. Inflation has barely stabilized, and people voted for lower grocery costs. Well, we're going to see costs at the grocery stores going up because diesel is going up and oil is going up because of this war. We've got 30% of the world's fertilizer goes through the Strait. That affects our farmers that are struggling already. We voted to put Americans first. I'm a conservative. I'm the America First wing of the Republican Party. That's how I voted. That's what I fight for. That's what I want to see happen. I want to see Americans put first. And we've got the Republicans in Congress right now. They can't even fund Homeland Security. Our own Border Patrol, ICE, TSA agents, and others are not even getting paid. But yet here they are told that they're going to be voting, and they'll vote for it. Believe me, they love the war. The neocons love the war. They're going to pass a supplemental to fund the war in Iran. What is that going to be? $50 billion or more, while the war is costing us approximately $1 to $2 billion a day. But yet we're not even funding Homeland Security, and Americans are still struggling. And Caitlin, I got to tell you, I'm still waiting on Mike Johnson to roll out that Republican health care plan.
All these politicians are really they're controlled by the JEW-ish lobbyists. Critical firms Amalek is running America. Okay. That's why Iran refers to America as Big Satan and the Israelis as Little Satan. All right. So she said, paraphrasing what she said, is summarizing everything she said. This war is going to be detrimental within every aspect of living, especially economically in America. Okay, so that party and bullshit spirit is out of the door, man. That's done. And that mirth and folly is no longer sustainable by the times which you're living in. All right, so this is on Daily Mail. It says missile strikes inside the U.S. Embassy compound in Baghdad as Trump's Iran war spirals. So, Iran was just destroyed, but they just targeted a U.S. Embassy compound in Baghdad. Okay, for the same reason they've been targeting U.S. military bases, surrounding the Persian Gulf, then these Gulf states. So it says a missile struck a helipad inside the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad as Trump's war in Iran heads into its third week. Plumes of smoke were seen above the U.S. Embassy in the Iraqi capital earlier amid reports a projectile had struck the government building. It comes after Trump said on Truth Social that the U.S. had totally obliterated all military targets in Iran's crown jewel, Carl Island. The U.S. president also vowed to wipe out oil infrastructure on the island of if Iran continued its attacks on vessels on the Strait of Hormuz. In recent days, Tehran has launched several attacks on oil tankers on the passage, which has seen oil prices skyrocket to $100 a barrel. So these devils knew that. These devils understood the ramifications of attacking Iran regarding the negative effects on the U.S. economy centered around the gas prices. So what this further confirms, once again, man, this is always, considered a synchronized demolition or orchestrated, demolition of this current monetary system in place, okay, mainly in America, to transition over to this totalitarian, dystopian technocracy. So a similar report on News Bites, reported Dubai airport fire breaks out after drone hits fuel tank. A fire broke out near the Dubai International Airport on Monday following a drone incident that hit a fuel tank. Emergency teams were immediately dispatched to the scene and have since brought the fire under control. No injuries have been reported so far. All right. The Dubai media office confirmed in a post on X, Dubai civil defense teams have successfully contained the fire resulting from impact to one of the fuel tanks in the vicinity of Dubai International Airport. So now, these areas surrounding U.S. military bases are not off limits, including airports. So that's not only is that affecting the national security of civilians, but also terrorism, because terrorism is heavy in Dubai, but it's not profitable to go over there right now. All right, that's why the Jakes were going, viral, complaining about being stuck over there because Trump abandoned them over there. And the Jakes that came back, a lot of them had to come out of their own pocket. It's on CNN. Says U.S. Air Force refueling plane crashes in Iraq, killing all 6 on board. And they're saying this wasn't supposedly done by Iran, but Esau's explanation sounds fishy. Says 6 U.S. service members are dead after U.S. Air Force KC-135 stratotanker, a refueling aircraft, crashed in western Iraq on Thursday. The U.S. military said, adding that the incident was not due to hostile friendly fire, supposedly according to U.S. Central Command. All right. So I'm on Reuters entitled Global Airlines Hike Fares, Cut Routes as Fuel Costs Balloon. All right. This reported a few days ago. Says Global Airlines sounded the alarm on Tuesday over soaring jet fuel prices triggered by the U.S. Triggered by the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran, warning of hundreds of millions of extra costs, higher fares, and cuts to some routes. Chief Executive Ed Biston said the dramatic run-up in jet fuel prices had increased the airline's costs by as much as $400 million in March alone. The industry is moving quickly to pass on higher expenses through fare hikes, he told a JP Morgan Industrials conference. All right, so now jet fuel prices were reportedly increasing, okay, making it, non-profitable and sustainable to board these flights. A lot of these flights are being compromised, man. All right, that's why down here in El Paso they had shut down the El Paso International Airport supposedly over the sighting of drones, when there was a chariot that actually had manifested. And that's around the time when Esau was testing his laser weapons, further furbishing a sword to prepare to fight Yahushua and the angels. Okay, so everything that's happening right now is going to lead into the downfall of America and return of Yahushua. All right. Okay, that's pretty much the point there. All right, let's get back to the precepts. All right, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and get Jeremiah 50. We'll start at verse 38. It says, "A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up, for it is a land of graven images, and they are mad upon her idols, just like they were in ancient Babylon. They are in modern day Babylon." Okay, through the Chesed Borgia idols, the false image of Messiah. There's Santos of Roman Catholicism. Okay, the Baphomet, satanic Baphomet statues. There's satanic replicas of Yahushua's mother Mary. You go, originating back to Semiramis, Queen of Heaven worship, and so forth. Esau's Edomite monuments. All these idols can be destroyed in Babylon the Great. Jeremiah 15:39. "Therefore the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owl shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation," because Yahweh Shemashah is going to wipe America off the face of the map. Actually, you know what? Should start at verse 35. Start at verse 35, Salakia. I'll work my way back down. Jeremiah 15:35. "A sword is upon the Chaldeans, saith the Yahweh, and upon the inhabitants of Babylon, and upon her princes, and upon her wise men." All right, and the modern day Chaldeans, okay, are the Zionist bankers, because the Chaldeans were known as warlocks in the Neo-Babylonian Empire during the reign of the Assyrians. Okay, so these modern day Chaldeans are these bankers. Okay, heavy into mysticism, divination, which is witchcraft. Verse 36. "A sword is upon the liars, and they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed." Your mighty men, your military can be destroyed. Okay, annihilated within this last world's war. Okay, by your enemies and ultimately by Yahushua and the angels. Verse 37. "A sword is upon their horses, upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her, and they shall become as women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed." All right, and so China, Iran, it's like Iran, threading this proposition to open up the Strait of Hormuz via oil pricing through the petro yuan of China is another foreshadowing or omen of a sword being upon your treasures, the treasures of the whore, America, Babylon the Great. Okay, all the wealth you've accumulated will be considered nothing, as it was prophesied in St. James 5, the 5th chapter I read earlier, the way this last world's war being used to bring you down. All right, so that's why the scripture say you shall become as women. Okay, you're to be made feeble, weak. Okay, vulnerable, like a woman, a weaker vessel, could be considered booty, spoils of war in the midst of war. See, but you have women in your military right now. You have fairies, weak soul boys in military, and you got transformers that were born males and chopped their rods off and became women. So this precept covers all bases in terms of the shameful spewing being cast upon the glory of you devils, man. Okay, verse 38 again. I probably just ended off here. It says, "A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up, for this land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. Okay, so this is America, Babylon the Great, man. This is who you devils are. Okay, the golden city. Let's get that real quick. Isaiah 14:6 says, "He who smote the people in wrath with a continuous stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth." See, nations coming up against you, man. And let me get this real quick. This is on The Guardian, entitled South Africa. Get rid of this. South Africa expels top diplomat over insulting attacks on president. So South Africa and the Israeli regime have been going back and forth, expelling their diplomats. Says South Africa and Israel have engaged in a tit-for-tat expulsion of senior diplomats after South Africa ordered the Israelis charged affairs to leave within 72 hours, citing insulting attacks on South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, on social media. Okay, so every aspect, every facet, you devils are being ostracized, man. Nobody wants to deal with you anymore. Then speaking of Africa, the IMF had threatened to cut who was that? It was an African nation a few years ago. They sent Kamala Harris down there. Okay, try to push their Alpha Mafia component of their NWO on them. When they refused, the IMF threatened to cut them off economically. It was a so-called African country. I can't think of who it is. You can Google it. But speaking of Africa, so on The National, it's entitled "Sudanese Islamist Commander Vows to Send Troops to Iran if U.S. and Israel deploy soldiers." Says a Sudanese Islamist figure fighting alongside the National Army has appeared in a video circulating online voicing support for Iran and threatening to send fighters if U.S. and Israeli ground forces enter the country on behalf of the Sudanese Mujahideen. Okay. So you got Islamic support in Africa. All right. Let's get this article here on Newsbreak. Titled Trump threatens to cut off all trade with Spain over Iran war. And Spain is an ally of America. Okay. Spain is an ally of America. So, and specifically a NATO member. So why they're willing to compromise a relationship? Because pursuant to Ecclesiastes 10:16, it says, woe be unto thee when thy king as a child. We're literally being ruled over by a damn child. And the clown on the screen is of no exception regarding his current administration. Donald Trump is attacking Spain over the country's refusal to let the U.S. use its air bases to bomb Iran. And we ain't got to read any more of that. You devils are finished, man. Through. All right. Go back to the precepts. This is Isaiah 14:7. It says, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. There's no singing going on right now, meaning there's no rejoicing going on. As it says in Proverbs 29:2, when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. When the righteous beareth rule, the people rejoice, roughly paraphrasing. People are protesting and rioting. Some of them are putting law enforcement to death in America, Babylon the Great. Okay. They're storming embassies and so forth. Okay, because they're tired of the oppression and tyranny, corruption of you devils. All right. They're going on social media and going viral over exposing you devils. Isaiah 14 and actually that was it. I believe that was it. Let me get second Ezra. Speaking of that, get second Ezra 15:16. right, man. This Slovakia, 1 second, Baba Shah. Second Esdras 15 and 16. I'm gonna play a quick video. Second Esdras 15 and 16 says, "For there shall be sedition among men, in invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Sedition going into violent uprisings against a corrupt government, and America is of no exception to that. This is what's going to happen in this place. Quick precept on that. St. Mark 3 and 24 in the NLT. It reads, "A king." This is exactly what we're seeing right now, and a further element of that is the sedition, okay, between American citizens, their officials in America, including this guy here. Let me bring him up. Top Trump counter-terror advisor resigns over Iran war, no imminent threat. Says he said Iran pose no imminent threat to our nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from the Israelis and its powerful American lobby. Kent, who served as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, had wrote, and this is guy here, the former Trump counterterror advisor, all right, by the name of Joe Kent, this guy right here. And that's going to further leave the door open for false FLAG attacks. So this further confirms that the Heavenly Father Yahweh is the man of war, ultimate proverbial chess player. He has the proverbial chess pieces as he pleases on his board. Okay. Because what they did, they just sent 25 to 2,500 in Esau's fabricated numbers, because there's between 5,000 and 10,000 Marines they just sent to the Levant, all right, the so-called Middle East. A lot of Marines and military officials, including Navy pilots, have been opposing this Iran war because they know it's a losing battle, man. A lot of them are not going to come back, and if they do come back, then come back in body bags, as they have been as of recently. Okay, now this devil says the death toll is up to 13. That's a Freemasonic number. We're not ignorant of Satan's devices. There's a hell of a lot more than that. Okay, a hell of a lot more than that, man. Most likely we're 1,000 by now. When it was initially reported on the likes of Al Jazeera and alternative media outlets and so forth, the numbers around the 500s. Somebody has said, "You mean to tell me that the U.S. military bases have been targeted and obliterated collectively with only 6 fatalities? Come on, get the fuck out of here, man. It's gaslighting, more gaslighting from this devil." Okay. Speaking of which, so on the Gateway Pundit says, "Armed Muslim man wearing military gear arrested after walking into Texas elementary school." So this most likely was a sleeper cell agent. Okay. Further look into being used by the devil to further demonize Iran as terrorists. The suspect, 39-year-old Kyle Naeem Chris, aka Mahid Mohamed Naeem, walked into Zwink Elementary School on Tuesday in Spring, Texas, after another visitor failed to secure the first set of doors to the school, supposedly. How the hell did this happen after what happened to them kids in Uvalde, that Uvalde school down here in Texas? Fuck out of here, man. All right. So this is grab a quick precept. Second Esdras 6 and 22. Second Esdras 6 and 22. It reads, "And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty." Okay, further, through the contributions of this U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, okay, that led to the shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, okay, that has further led into a global geoeconomical turmoil. All right. So this is on End Time Headlines entitled "Supermarket Shelves Set to Empty as Fruit and Veggie Growers Warn They Will Have to Halt Production Due to Rising Costs Sparked by Iran War." And that lines of a prophecy, man. Okay. Going to the plagues of the Lord. You get that real quick. Second Esdras, go back to Second Esdras 15. I'm going to wrap this up because I got to hit the plantation in a minute. Second Esdras 15. And 10. Reads, "Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt." All right, it says, "But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof." All right, part of the main plagues, Yahweh by Shemeshah brought on ancient Egypt, was famine. All right, which you can read about in what's that? What was that? Exodus. Yep, Exodus, the 9th and the 10th chapters. Okay, when the Heavenly Father Yahweh plagued the herbs of the field and the vegetation with the plague of locusts. And then he attacked the cattle of the Egyptians. Okay, consuming the herbs of the field, including the vegetation, limiting the capability of growing food from the ground, the natural way. All right. Then in Genesis 41, there was a famine brought on Egypt during the time of Joseph, man. So these plagues are repeating. So it says in Ecclesiastes 1:9, there's nothing new under the sun. And in 2nd Esdras 5:42 says, the judgment of Yahweh by Shemeshah is like a wheel, meaning it comes full circle. So in a similar way, ancient Babylon fell and ancient Egypt fell, it's how modern day Egypt and modern day Babylon will fall, which is America. All right. 2nd Esdras 15 and 12. It says, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that Yahweh by Shemeshah shall bring upon it. Says, Salakia, says, they that till the ground shall mourn, for their seeds shall fail through the blasting and hail, and with a fearful consolation. So they that till the ground shall mourn, these farmers, man. Okay. Mainly these farmers, because their seeds are going to fail. Okay, because because of the farming industry being affected through the lack of fertilizer, 35% of which being cut off by the Strait of Hormuz being cut off, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene was mentioning. Okay, 2nd Esdras 15 and 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Woe, war, destruction is coming to America, Babylon the Great. It's already existent. This hasn't fully manifested within a thermonuclear scale, which it will very soon. Okay. There is speculation that the Israelis will eventually nuke Iran. Iran's waiting for that. Okay. So eventually, Amalek, on behalf of these Edomites, can do something stupid, even more so with what they've done right now, attacking Iran, and that's gonna further draw these other nations, into this war. As it's prophesied in Jeremiah 49 and 20. At the least of the flock, shall draw them out. The least of the flock being the tiny tops of the Holy Land, drawing these other nations out into this war. And so, for the fulfillment of that prophecy is, certain NATO and EU nations refusing to help Trump open up the Strait of Hormuz by sending their ships over there. Further confirmed there's a great division in America, Babylon the Great. It's all by the hand of Yahweh by Shemeshah. All right. So this is 2nd Esdras 15 and 15. Says, for the sword and the destruction draw nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. Okay, we're seeing that, man. Modern day swords are weapons. Okay, the modern day sword mainly the firearm. That's why there's at least 27 to 38 out of 50 states in America that allows or permits open permitless gun laws. Open permitless gun laws, and that's self-explanatory. Because Esau welcomes the carnage because he's a carnal man, so he could justify, applying order, mainly through martial law. All right, so there's another sign of martial law. Jake, people crashing out, including Jake. This is a video. Salaki, man, the fuck should I have to sign in to watch this? The video that priest Mahaloya put up. Let me go to get on another browser. Fucking devils, man. One second, Bob Gashah. All right, the water. I could say Ghana. Yeah, it was Ghana. And these devils they sent Kamala Harris to try to push that Alpha Mafia component of their NWO on Ghana. And then the IMF threatened to cut them off economically. And shalom to the brother Damawati out there in Orlando. Yahweh Shemishah Barakatah. Want the wife for tuning in, beloved. All right, so we're going to put this up real quick, man. I'll just look it up manually because it forced me to sign in on Google. Yeah. 1 second, Baba Kasha. Let me see. Here we go. All right, fair use once again, specifically, regarding the guidelines, the YouTube guidelines of violence. I'm not promoting violence by playing this video. All right. So I'm gonna play this video here. Entitled Houston Rodeo Shutdown. Jake crashing out.
Just wow.
This is madness. Fucking madness, man. Now there's a similar video. There's a similar incident that happened in Dallas. I actually had the video pulled up, but Esau had flagged it. And when I tried to pull it up, you can see here. Let me see. You'll see that this content may be inappropriate. Now I'm not sure if you can see this, but I believe it may be on YouTube, but I'm not sure if you can. Probably won't be able to see it like that. Nah, you ain't gonna be able to see it. But basically, this is on an Instagram platform. Yahweh Servant 144, and Jake's was wilding, man, sleeping each other, knocking each other out. And there's some kind of another spring break parade. It kind of looked like a racial brawl as well. Not as much as really so-called black on black crime, man. And Jake, like the Priest-Mall lawyer said, Jake will fight themselves, but they won't exert that energy towards Esau. Not that we're promoting carnality, but if at least gonna be a nigga, okay, have a spine about it. Which is you know, which is contradictory being a nigga in the first place because they're spineless, but nonetheless, collectively. But yeah, it's on Yahweh Servant 144 on Instagram entitled Spirits of Creative Inventions. And this actually was a fight that broke out during the St. Patrick's Parade in Dallas, which was 2 days ago. People were getting knocked out. See, because people are on edge, man. There's another sign of 2nd Ezra 15 to 16. 2nd Ezra 15 to 16. 15, Slakia. For the sword and destruction draw nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another in swords in their hands. So not only are people prophesy to fight against Esau's government, they're going to be, the civil war is going to involve civilian on civilian action, man. And that's what that image, that video was a further omen of. All right. So that's pretty much a point on that. So now I'm going to segue over to 2nd Ezra 16. And start at verse 33. Second Ezra 16 and 33. Says the virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms, referring to women. And I mean, what? You're not going to have any husbands. Whether you have husbands, you currently have husbands, they get put to death, or you're wicked women, not covered by the blood of the Lamb. Okay, more so the haughty daughters of Zion, because other women of the other nations don't matter. But if you're a haughty daughter of Zion and you either have a man, okay, he most likely would be put to death, or if that's within his lot. Or if you don't have a man and you're a wicked woman, you're going to be a virgin that would be mourning. Okay, it says the women shall, I'll read from the top, the virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. So all that independent woman nonsense, okay, is going to be null and void. Case in point, the priest Mahal lawyer did a video yesterday about these two nigger women got attacked by some dogs. And he said, well, he chose a bear, right? Because there was a video going out, some cliche saying that was going out, or some trendy saying, rather, shall I say, of these wicked modern day women, these females, saying that they'd rather choose a bear than if they had the option to choose between a man and a bear, they choose a bear. In a facetious way to imply that they don't need men. They'd rather be in the company with a beast. Well, you got your wish in terms of them two nigger women that got attacked by them two dogs. I think it was I don't know if they were pits or I don't know what it was, but it was at least one dog that attacked the two nigger women. Now judgment. Salakia. they're very, very fortunate they didn't get put to death, because there's a 20-year-old Edomite dog sitter a few years ago that got attacked by some dogs. She was dog sitting, and they tore her face completely off, man. They basically mutilated her face. To the point to where, despite Esau's many surgeries, there was not amount of surgeries that could repair the tissue damage that was done by the dogs, man. That reminds me of that precept, man. Dogs to tear. Okay, let me get that real quick. Yeah, man, because when the Lord said he's gonna unleash plagues, he meant exactly that. I think it's in Isaiah. I know there's one in Job 5, but the one I'm looking for is in Isaiah. But Slakia, this one, Jeremiah 15:3 says, "And I will appoint over them 4 kinds, said Yahweh, the sword to slay, and the dogs to tear, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy." So you haughty daughters of Zion that spews his madness about choosing the bear over the man, well, you're gonna get your wish. The book of Proverbs says, a fool's mouth bringeth forth strokes, roughly paraphrasing. Like the old folks say in the South, open mouth, insert foot. So this is what you welcome, but you're gonna get it, man. For playing with Yahweh by Shem Shai. He's not anyone to be playing with, man. Okay. As we can further witness what's going on in the world, okay, by his will. Okay. Destroying the current condition of this earth, filtered through folly and mirth and comfort. All right. That's why Yahweh Shem Shai is turning up the heat with these prophecies, man. That's why the days are going by swiftly. We're already 3.5 months in during the so-called year. The Pesach is right around the corner, the Passover. Okay, so things are happening, man. That was pretty much it. Let me go back to our second Esdras. Second Esdras 16 and 34. It says, "In the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine." If they don't get put to death in the civil war, then a good number of them are going to starve to death for playing around. Case in point, there's going to be an EMP attack at some point, man. A comprehensive cyber attack, in the words of Klaus Schwab, the former head of the WEF. He said some years ago, in the early 2020s, he said, or the late 2010s, he said there's going to be a comprehensive cyber attack affecting the global supply, affecting logistics. See, that's why through the spirit, another omen of this famine is diesel price increasing. That's going to cause a lot of truck drivers, to contemplate striking, going on labor strikes and so forth. A lot of them is going to quit because that job's not going to be sustainable anymore for them. So all in all, famine is on the horizon, man. Okay, and that's gonna destroy a lot of people because the body's going to feed on itself, and that's a horrendous, egregious death. This goes into in Lamentations 4:9. It's better to die by the sword than to die by famine. As it goes into that precept. All right, but that's what's destined for a lot of you Americans, because you're gluttonous, you're proud, you're entitled, you're narcissistic, all forms of pride. You're faithless, so you're gonna be a force to fend for yourselves, man. In this upcoming civil war, otherwise known as Jacob's trouble in Jeremiah 37. Second Esdras 16 and 35. Hear now these things and understand them, you servants of Yahweh by Shem Shai. And really, Jacob's trouble really pertains to Jake. Jake, 2/3 of Jake, like these niggas here, they're gonna be forced to fend for themselves, man. They are gonna be forced to fend for themselves. Okay, to live like brute beasts. Okay, this goes into 2 Peter, the 2nd chapter. 2nd Esdras 16 and 36 reads, "Behold, the word of Yahweh by Shem Shai, receive it, believe not the gods of whom Yahweh by Shem Shai spake. And the God of this world, pursuing in 2 Corinthians 4:4, is Esau, Edom. The physical manifestation of the spiritual demon Shaitan, doing his bidding, looking to be reverenced as God through their God complex predicated off of Edomite supremacy. Hence why Trump and Pete Hegseth have been, blatantly bragging about the military might, as opposed to the supposed war on terror against Iran. What happened to that? Just like what happened to the war on domestic terrorism and gang affiliation through Tren de Agua in Venezuela, blamed on Nicolas Maduro. Because after Maduro and his wife got captured, what did Trump say? We're going to take over the oil sector. He didn't say, well, this horrible domestic terrorism regime is over. What happened to that? After you got what you want, your true colors came out. See? So we don't believe the gods whom the Lord spake. All right? Especially in the case of Esau, Edom. 2nd Ezra 16:37. Behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack. They're not slacking right now, man. Including famine. In case in point, we get this quick precept. Second Ezra 16:21, where this whole chapter is fire. For the second time, I'm just going to go ahead and get these few precepts here, starting in 2nd Ezra 16:21. It says, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. All right. And this is exactly what we're witnessing now, man. Okay. Because what are victuals? They're like food supplies. Okay. Necessities. Okay. Including gas and so forth. All right. Food supplies, nourishment, in a form of, once again, necessities. Okay. That we heavily rely on, through the food that's produced in these supermarkets, the food produced from the farming industry, gas that once was cheap, especially gas, because we've been getting that. In case of point, we've been getting off light down here in Texas. Gas price has been below $3 for the longest time, and all these proud people, including these proud, women, that these proud devils, especially, they're already emboldened in their pride. They're that much more proud because they especially down here, because the price of living is so cheap. But now look, the gas prices are approaching $4, man. It's going to get beyond that. Adam Ratazah, I was telling the brothers after camp a few days ago, Adam Ratazah, man, gas prices it looks like California gas prices are down here. So you people can finally feel the fucking pain, man. You Babylonians marveling after this damn devil. Percent of Revelation 13:3. Hey, 2nd Ezra 16:21 from the top. Behold, victory shall be so good cheap upon earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. People are wondering why this earth is circling and drained. Well, it's prophesied. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Okay? 2nd Ezra 14:17 says the earth would die by age, because Esau's ruling it. Okay? 2nd Ezra 16:22. For many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. See? Those are horrible judgments either way, but it's better to be put to death by the sword than it is to die, to wither away by the egregious, slow, grueling death of famine, pursuing Lamentations 4:9, man. So go back to 2nd Ezra 16. Actually, yeah, read that again. 2nd Ezra 16:37. Behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack. They're not slack, man. The Lord is not playing. Okay, he's bringing horrible judgments upon this earth. Because it says, like it says in Psalm 7:11, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yeshai is angry at the wicked every day. All right, so this is Psalm 59:13. It says, consume them in wrath, consume them, that they may not be, and let them know that Yahweh by Shem Yashai ruleth in Jacob, and to the ends of the earth, Selah. See, how about Shem Yashai can consume the wicked in his wrath by bringing evil upon them, as it says in Psalm 34 and 21, that the evil will be slayed, the wicked will be slayed with evil, including famine. That's evil, because the Heavenly Father Yahweh controls evil, pursuing Isaiah 45 and 7, and it was always predestinated for the wicked. Okay, but the righteous will not be begging bread. So we don't need to promote or advertise bug out bags like IUIC, because we have faith the Yahweh Shem Yashai is going to sustain us in these last days, man. All right. So I'm ended off on that note. Pray this lesson was further edifying his ordinance to elect, and give all praise, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Barach Kudash, and give all praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, who is our strength and our Redeemer, and our light and our salvation. All right, once again, in the same tongue, Adam Mashanah, Tabawadium, Lahasaquanium, Shal, God of Rabakab, meaning double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, great millstone for teaching really well, and Shalom, honor and salutations to Bayashad Abadah, the house of David, of the 1/3 elect remnant of the nation of Israel, along with the rest of the 1/3 elect men, women, and children of Israel scattered across the four corners, especially in America, Babylon the Great, the main place of our captivity. All right, the water for you, Akim, while Akwa tuning in. All right, Adam Ratazad is fed edifying once again. And call on by Yahweh, by Shem Yashai, by Shem Kakadash, while Mawath Lababal, soon and very soon, and on to the next one.